You're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Denkman. At the start of every week, I sit down with another journalist to talk about the biggest news developing right now and how it affects the Pacific Northwest. Today on the show, I think of you as kind of like Seattle's film guy. Is that fair?
That's very flattering.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, Seattle's film guy, journalist, and critic Chase Hutchinson. You can find your writing where, Chase? In the Seattle Times, all over the place, right?
Wherever will have me.
All right. Chase writes, does film reviews, writes about movie news, and I follow it closely because I'm a big movie buff. We'll get to that later in Front Page. But first, our top story.
Now, entering U District. Doors to my left.
The Sound Transit Board looks likely to move forward with adding fare gates to more than a dozen existing light rail stations. The board heard a report on Thursday that recommended adding gates to every stop between Northgate and the CID, plus the big ones at the end of the lines like Linwood, downtown Redmond, Federal Way, and SeaTac. It is going to cost money, but that is expected to be recouped within 2 to 5 years because more funds will be coming in if people are forced to pay. These would be tap-on and tap-off gates. So even if you got on at a station, that still doesn't have a fare gate, if you get off downtown, you will have to buy a ticket. A lot of this reporting, I should say, is thanks to friend of the show, Ryan Packer at The Urbanist. Thank you to them. So, Chase, I should note that you actually live in Tacoma. So last I checked, no light rail yet in Tacoma. You got the Sounder commuter train, you got the buses, the street rail car, but actual light rail not coming to Tacoma till 2035. So I'm curious what you think about this and what stands out to you.
I would say I would happily pay a fare to travel all the way up from Tacoma on any sort of thing that's not a car. I had come up here for the final game that the Seattle Mariners played last year here in the playoffs and had gone up to Federal Way and then taken the train the rest of the way up. And that was a wonderful, lovely experience. And so I'm looking forward to any time that there can be a connection all the way down. Fares, I'll just take it.
Did you pay for your ride when
Yes.
you came to the game?
Yes.
Okay.
There were a lot of people that were jammed in there, but as far as I could see, everybody was paying. That's obviously anecdotal, but everyone was being pretty good about it.
The stadium stop is actually one of the ones they say they will not be adding a fare gate to. And one of the things they're worried about is with the at-grade stations, especially with a big event station, is people will walk onto the tracks to avoid the gates. And that's just more, especially coming out of a Mariners game. You got a few people who are a little lubricated and they might be taking some risks, So they don't want to see anything like that resulting from the gates. Some interesting data on fare evasion, because this debate about whether to enforce the fares has been going on really since before 2020, but it heated up in 2020. It became an equity issue. Fare enforcement was just generally stopped during the pandemic. So before the 2020 hiatus on fare enforcement, light rail fare evasion, according to Sound Transit, was about 15%. And today, it's closer to 37%. It's a little bit harder to get an accurate count because kids who are under 18 ride for free. And so they say if you count for the kids who are riding for free, maybe fare evasion is more like 30. But it's twice what it was before the pandemic. I mean, people argue this is something that especially lower income people should have access to. If you raise the barriers, it's going to be more problems for them. I don't know. I mean, there does seem to be a pendulum swinging away from that sort of sympathy and more towards like what Dave Summers, the Snohomish County executive, has been saying, which is the equity conversation is more about if I pay, you should have to pay. What do you think about that, Chase?
I think this is a wonderful problem to have. I think having these conversations are important ones, and that there is access to these types of means of transportation means Seattle is growing. Like where you were saying there was less fare evasion before, I'd be curious to know if it means that more people are taking it. That feels like something that can be worked from.
They
and built
absolutely
off of.
are. Yeah, we've hit like a huge high in ridership. They say it's one of the most or the most ridden light rail system in the country. So it's certainly, the ridership is absolutely growing. I do sense a little like of a Tacoma resident, commenting on this, being like, I sent you a piece earlier from the Tacoma News Tribune, basically pointing out that Tacoma residents have paid in $3 billion in taxes, in especially sales tax, since the start of this ST3. and you've only reaped like 1.5 billion in actual spending in Tacoma. So maybe a little bit of bitterness, do I sense?
I'm very zen about this. I'm very ocean waves, because the quote that stood out to me from that story was that it ebbs and flows where some of the money goes.
Sure.
That as we get closer, maybe some of that funding will start to come more our way. And we also did luck out that we weren't put on the delay list. So
Yes.
we're just counting our blessings that it's within a decade or so.
Yeah, that you're
we
not
can see it.
Ballard.
Yes, exactly. I have friends in Ballard, and as soon as that happened, I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
They're not going to be thrilled about this. So I'm very positive on most of these developments, even as, and I had jokingly said this to you, it can feel like it reaches a fever pitch to where we should call it Fairgate, as in Watergate. I know, dad joke. But it feels like a worthwhile conversation to have. It's going to have some growing pains. It's going to have some challenges. And it sounds like there's plans that are being made to cut down on sort of the fare evasion, but also think about, like you had given the example of the Mariners sort of games, think about like times where does it make sense?
Being
like on
smart
a
about
case by case basis. Yeah.
And Mayor Wilson, who's somebody who expressed concerns about barriers for poor people's access to transit, you know, she comes from a transit advocacy background. In her recent recommendation to bump up the sales tax to fund transit in Seattle, tens of thousands of low income fare cards for people who need to Orca cards, people who need to access transit and can't afford it. It's something that she's been working on. If you want to make a comment about this fare enforcement conversation, you can send us an email at soundside@kuow.org or leave us a voicemail. The number is 206-221-3213. That's 206-221-3213. And in the meantime, we're going to turn the page on Front Page.
Promise me you will come back.
What if I can't?
Well, summer movie season is upon us, and for film buffs, this is a year with a Christopher Nolan release, which means it's a pretty big deal. That brings us to what's been happening in our local film scene. And first up is that SIFF is screening the Odyssey, Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, in 70 millimeter for Seattle audiences starting July 16th. Chase, this is notable. Why? I guess first off, why is 70 millimeter a big deal? Why is it a big deal that it's actually being screened here in Seattle?
So specifically 70 millimeter, very basically, is a large gauge specialty format. The 70 millimeter refers to the size of the film being projected, which creates a richer image. It's more immersive. You can see the textures. You can see every pore on Matt Damon's face as he goes off.
That's what I've been waiting for.
Exactly. That's what the people want. As for the local significance, the Cinerama, now the SIFF Cinema Downtown, used to play 70 millimeter screenings a lot. It was the thing that people were most excited about going to see there. And so them bringing it back has kind of a very personal significance for people. There was someone I heard from that they used to go and see 2001 A Space Odyssey. And so now we've come from one Odyssey to the next with this chapter.
Oh, it's full circle. So 70 millimeter, big deal for people who care about movies, and obviously they want to see it in the best format possible. Also, just something that an average theater goer would notice? Like the quality, do you think they would?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that the reason it has become something that draws people out, including people that maybe don't go out to see movies all the time, is because you can tell the difference. You can see how crisp it looks, how much it kind of leaps off the screen. I think it's something that really resonates with people. Even if they can't always like exactly pinpoint the technical specifications, you can feel it.
I was fascinated. I think it was in your reporting where they talked about the weight of those reels and just the fact that you need a specialist to be able to screen it. It's not just about having the equipment, but the actual operator of the projector needs to know what they're doing. I do have a bone to pick with you, though,
Yes.
Chase. And I told you about this before we got on air. So you reported on this for the Seattle Times, and it was like, okay, they're going on sale Thursday, 9 a.m., the 70 millimeter Odyssey tickets. And so my friends and I get up. I mean, most of us were awake already on Thursday at 9 a.m. Those who could logged in to try to get the tickets, and the SIFF website couldn't handle it. It was crashing all the time. You don't work for SIFF. I'm not saying that it's your problem, that you're not the back-end person at the SIFF website, but I feel like by shedding more attention on this, you made it really tough for a lot of us to get the tickets. And finally, somebody in my group of friends did finally get through. It crashed on the final purchase page, but then she got a confirmation email. So we believe we got opening weekend tickets, but who knows for sure. So explain yourself, basically. I'm holding you accountable here.
I apologize to the film goers of Seattle, everyone that was excited. It sounds like from people I talked to, most everyone was able to figure it out using a similar kind of strategy that your friend
Just
did.
Blunt force.
Just persistence, commitment, and then one person buy a bunch of tickets for everyone. I can't speak for SIF. It sounds like that they were prepared for some of this, but obviously there was a lot of excitement for it. And in their defense, it wasn't just them that were having challenges. AMC, their ticketing platform, was creating huge wait lines for all their movies sometimes, not even just The Odyssey. But if you have any uncertainty about whether your ticket was legit, you should probably email SIF box office and be respectful, be polite, because they're just also trying to do their jobs.
Yeah,
but
it's a great nonprofit in our
Exactly.
region. Don't flame them, please.
But I think everyone will be able to get the ticket because it is playing for a good run. If you're wanting to see it on 70 millimeter, you'll have ample chance to do so.
Okay, a second local movie story that is more of a bummer, I would say. It's that the Boeing IMAX at Seattle Center is not going to be showing feature films in the near future, at least. And this is a place where I think a lot of those Christopher Nolan heads and the people wanting to see The Odyssey would have maybe, been able to split the demand between SIF and IMAX. But this is fallout from the Space Needle purchasing the Science Center. What's going on? Why not show feature movies at this incredible 6-7-story theater?
So that's a very good question. And as a little more context, Sinners played there last year, and it was considered one of the preeminent best places to see Sinners, one of the biggest movies of the year last year.
And we're talking about in the country, because this
Exactly,
is
yes.
one of the biggest theaters biggest IMAXs, true IMAX you can see. It's better than, I would say as a former LA resident, better than IMAXs in Los Angeles, for example.
The thing about why they're not showing it is that they don't consider it to be something that was their priority. They had told me that they didn't go into this wanting to operate a movie theater, which can be a tough thing. There are challenging logistical parts that people might not know about, where if you want to play one of the biggest movies of the year, you're a little bit at the mercy of the studio saying, okay, well, if you're going to play this, you have to play maybe this not so other good movie and have to play it for a long amount of time on what's called a clean screen. There are some of those like challenging logistical parts. With that being said, you're not alone in that people are very saddened and a little bit confused about why you would acquire this beloved space with so much history. I spoke to Chris Miller, a local director who made a little movie called Project Hail Mary.
Yeah, we've heard of it.
And what he told me is when he was a kid, he would go see movies there.
Wow.
And that was one of the first places that really inspired him to make movies as well. And so it's a tough thing and a tough loss. Part of all these challenging logistics of operating a space, but currently the movie-going audience is losing out on one of their favorite places now.
Yeah, not saying that the theater business is easy.
Yes.
But if it's there and it's got these amazing technical specs and there was a loyal group of people that loved going, maybe they'll change their mind in the future once they've kind of got their feet as, the new owners of the Science Center. We've got a couple minutes left and I want to get to our last story, also film-related for Front Page.
I found something. In the store.
Ooh, that's part of the Backrooms trailer. Some of you may have seen it already. Since I have you here, Chase, there is this conversation going on about what is happening at the box office. There was a huge blow during the pandemic, obviously. There's been years of not great news for movie theaters. But May was an absolute gangbusters month for ticket sales. And notably, the conversation has really been about the way these 20-something directors of horror movies that started, as YouTube directors are really getting young people back to the theater. What is your take on what's going on? Are we at the dawning of a new age for film going? Is this Easy Rider and it's 1969? Couple minutes here for you to cook on this.
I would say the more direct comparison is Steven Spielberg Jaws. And I say that with like 50 asterisks. But I think it is an interesting one where it is a new generation, a genre film, but it's very much of its moment. It's for a younger audience dealing with the anxieties of the internet. People have been making lots of comparisons between, especially in the case of Backrooms. And I think that there will be many people that try and recreate this moment and maybe are successful. But I think the sign that has people most optimistic is this was a relatively original film that drew out young people more so than a Star Wars movie, which was pretty remarkable, at least like further into its run.
That's a Mandalorian and Grogu.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that I don't want to overstate it, but I think things have shifted a little bit. I will say horror has always done very well. People have been always excited to see that. But I went to see, because I had reviewed Backrooms for the Seattle Times, and really liked the technical aspects of it. Was a little more mixed on the story, but was like, I should go see it again. And I saw it with a young audience, and they were locked in. It tapped into something new. And so I would say there's certainly those kind of box office things, but I think it's also a good movie. And I think as long as there are those good original movies that young people are interested in, we might see folks start coming back to the movies again.
Kane Parsons, director of Backrooms, 20 years old when he made that film, and just absolutely shattered expectations. Opened at 81 million, and it's just going up from there. Chase Hutchinson, we're a little over, you and I, than over 20 years old, but we're still shattering expectations here on Front Page. Really appreciate you being here, and it's been fun talking news headlines, especially movie headlines with you. Thank you.
Of course.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. Don't forget you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime right here online at KUOW.org, or of course on your favorite podcast app.